Hello guys, welcome back to History with Heath. Well, that's my new name. I used to call myself the Casual Historian, but there's another major channel that has that name, so now I'm going to be calling myself History with Heath. Anyway, as I promised in my last video, today's video will be about the Ilkhanate. The Ilkhanate was founded in 1256 by Hulagu, I think I'm saying that right, who was a grandson of Genghis Khan during the Mongol expansion into the Middle East. It spanned over Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Armenia and parts of modern-day Turkey until around the 14th century. Although it did submit to the Great Khan of Mongolia, the Ilkhans did sort of work as different independent rulers, sort of like with the other Khanates, like the Chagatai Khanate, the Golden Horde, and the Yuan dynasty. They had the main Mongol aristocratic traditions, but they also sort of mixed that with sort of the Persian influence. Of course, Persian culture did influence them a lot, especially with the later rulers and their rump version of themselves, the Jalarids, just before they fell. The first ruler, Hulagu, as I already said, which is spelled Hullegu, but both U's have umlauts. He ruled from 1256 to 1265, and his religion was Mongolian Buddhism, which was at the time and still is a fusing of Tibetan Buddhism, Tengriism, and Mongolian shamanism. He was very tolerant of Christianity due to his wife Dogus Khatun, who I believe was Christian, I think. And then he eventually died of natural causes in, of course, 1265. He is notable for destroying the Nizari Ismailis and sacking Baghdad in 1258, which marked the end of the Abbasid Caliphate and the end of the Islamic Golden Age in Baghdad. He was succeeded by Abaka, who ruled from 1265 to 1282, and who was also Buddhist, Mongolian Buddhist. And he was very tolerant of all faiths, similar to his father, I believe. He died of natural causes, just like his predecessor, and he would continue wars with the Mamluks throughout his life, and he'd also strengthen his ties with Christian Europe, which I think is very notable, because you'd think that there'll be lots of contention between a Muslim nation, but remember, he was Buddhist, so I think that maybe kind of eased the tensions. Don't quote me on this, but I think that makes sense. Anyway, he was succeeded by Tegeta, who ruled from 1282 to 1284, so only 2 years, and he was the first Muslim emperor, and he took the Muslim name Ahmad. He was overthrown by his nephew Argan, and his Islamic policies for once actually did severely persecute the Buddhist and Christian Mongolian elite. And yes, that's unsurprising, but there were Christians in the elite, especially like Hulagu's wife, Dogus Khatun. Argan was, of course, Buddhist, and he was very interested in alchemy and Taoist practices, which I think is unique, especially considering how Ilkhanate of all places wasn't really in that Chinese surroundings. I can understand with the Yuan Khanate, the Yuan dynasty, that there was kind of probably trade and interactions, but still you wouldn't really expect it. Anyway, he died of illness, just like Abaka and Hulagu, and he did persecute some Muslim officials, but not to a massive extent. He was then succeeded by Gyakatu, who ruled for 4 years, from 1291 to 1295. He was Buddhist, and he is notable for being strangled to death by Mongolian nobles, which I think is very surprising, especially considering the fact that it was because of him trying to introduce paper money. Well, it was an economic crisis, but still, paper money and strangling. Very weird. Anyway, he's remembered for this economic crisis, definitely. And I believe, yes, he was the last Buddhist Khan of the Ilkhanate. He was succeeded by Baidu, who ruled just for 1 year in 1295. And he was actually an Nestorian Christian. And I don't want to delve into too much religion because I know this video is about history. But I just want to touch on Nestorian Christianity. Basically, Nestorian Christianity, which is also known as the Assyrian Church of the East, is still around today. And they are the main church in Asia. And they, like, especially during medieval times, like the time we're talking about now, they converted many, many people in China and Mongolia and that region to Christianity. Like, they weren't major populations, but they were there. And especially today, the Assyrian Church of the East, which is actually mainly in Syria now, as well as China and places like that, they believe in diaphysitism, which means that Christ, Jesus Christ, means that Christ has two natures, and this of course was formatted by Nestorius, and this means that Christ had two natures. And I don't want to get into these religion stuff, like I said, but basically in Christianity they believe that Christ is 100% human and 100% God, and they believe that this is one nature that is both God and, well, both divine and human. But Nestorians believe that they're two separate natures, and they believe that Christ is different from Jesus, and that Jesus was like his human form. And that's why in Nestorianism you can't say Mary is the mother of God, because you could say she's the mother of Jesus and the mother of Christ, but she's not the mother of God. And yes, I did get that bit from Redeem's Humour, that little quote there, so shout out to him. He's a good Christian YouTuber, makes good stuff about Christianity. I learned a lot from there. Probably make my video using his stuff. I'll still credit him, don't worry. Anyway, let's get back to the Ilkhanate. Anyway, after Baidu, there was Gahazan, who ruled from 1295 to 1304. He was Muslim, and he made it the state religion. He died from natural causes and is not really known for that much, except for stabilising the state and, just ruling pretty normally. And I think that's kind of cool, in that he wasn't really seen as anything major, because that means that he didn't really do anything bad or, like, something, like, he's just a chill guy. And then we've got Oljaitu, which I think is Oljeitu, but with the O and the U have an umlaut. He ruled from 1304 to 1316, and he converted from Buddhism to Christianity to Sunni Islam to Twelver Shiism. So he was a Shia Muslim. He died of natural causes, and he built a great mausoleum at Sultaniya and promoted Shiism. Then the ninth Khan, Abu Sa'id Bahadur Khan, ruled from 1316 to 1335. He was a Sunni Muslim again. He died from illness, and his death triggered the fragmentation of the Ilkhanate. After his death, there was a big fragmentation. There's lots of puppet khans from 1335 to 1357. Arpakayun was the first puppet khan. He was killed by the Jalarids, and by the way, these puppet khans were often under the puppetry, the control of the Jalarids and the Chabanids. And basically, I don't want to go through it too much, but there were 7 puppet khans, and the last one was a child puppet under Jalarid control, and he just disappears. Anyway, after 1357, they'd effectively ceased to exist. And then we had the Jalarids, who were seen as basically the successor to the Ilkhanate, because they were a Mongol clan, and they were close to the Ilkhans, definitely, and they emerged as the dominant power after Abu Sa'id's death. They were founded by Sheikh Hassan Buzurg, who was a Ilkhanate Amir, and they had their capital in Baghdad and then Tabriz, and they were a Sunni Islam group. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think all of their Khans were Sunni Muslims. Anyway, on the cultural side, I think it's cool how the Persian and Mongol elements kind of mixed up, and especially back with Arghun. He even has some Taoist things in there. And I think it's just crazy, like in Persia, Taoism. Anyway, so we had lots of early rulers that were Buddhist, Mongolian Buddhist with Tengrism, but they also saw Islam and Christianity as, they were there, they existed, they recognised them. And there was Ulhitu, who was Shia, 12-ish Shiist. And they're actually quite diverse, yet yes, there was some persecution during some of the Muslim Khans, but most of the time there was lots of, the majority was still Muslim, but they allowed other religions to easily persist, you know what I mean? But eventually it would decline, and especially where the Jalarids, it would become, like what you would stereotypically think of, persecution. Islam is the main, tax non-Muslims pay. Anyway, yeah, that's just a summary of the Ilkhans, and I don't really have anything other to say, except for there was actually a female Khan, as in the main Khan, which was a puppet Khan, sadly, but Sati Beg was a princess who was a figurehead from 1338 to 1399, from the sources at least. I don't know if I'm, getting this all messed up, but I don't think I am. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll catch you on the next one, and my next video will be on history, and after that I'm going to start a pattern where I'm alternating when I go from history to religion, history to religion, history to religion, and then I'll probably have a few random ones. And yes, my next history video is going to be a part 2 on this, and this time I'm going to talk about the Golden Horde. Bye guys, see you in the next video.